Alright guys, this is a video. I'm really shooting off the hip here. Direct response, just watched Daken Howlett's video. He did a video showing the entire, I think it was 72 issue run of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Archie run. And it was cool. And I decided to do my video real quick in response to that, basically because I have a bookshelf beside me and I just happen to have everything I needed for a quick video right beside me. So, and what's funny is I'm doing this video, I actually have a little bit of I don't want to mess up anything because we got people like Daken Howlett, Owen Neal, who come off as big Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fans, and it's kind of weird to be doing a video about something that I'm sure other people know much more about. So I'm trying to do you proud of this. Anyway, this is how he started out his video. This is the first issue. I got this when I was about 16, and it was quite a shock. It was on the newsstand. And it being Archie and everything, I should have known that it was going to be different than what I was looking for. When, around here, the way I remember the Turtles, nobody really heard of them. Turtles came out around 84. And, you know, you heard about how this thing was a bloody little comic book about ninjas and stuff. It slowly creeped in. Nobody was collecting. Nobody knew who they were. The cartoon hit in the late 80s, but I think it was syndicated first before it went to CBS around 89. I don't know my facts on that one. So I just know that the cartoon started coming on, and it was not what I expected after the little buzz that you heard about this book. So when I got this and opened it up and found how cartoony it was, I was very confused, you know, because I heard it was those turtles, we bleed and so do you, was the famous line, and we get this stuff. That is not a minus, it's just as a buyer, and this was before the Turtles became such a big part of our pop culture more than they are comics, in my opinion. You know, it didn't really matter because this came on the newsstand and it disappeared. They didn't have an issue 2, didn't know what happened to it. So coming out of the 80s there with the grim and gritty type style, you know, you didn't really kind of miss it. And you also got to remember, you had the big two, Marvel and DC, and Turtles was an independent book when it started out. So to have an independent book kind of come and go and start blowing up was not really that big of a deal. Independent scene in the 80s was really, you just never knew what you were going to get. There was some weird books coming out, and that was a plus, you know. But you know, it was no John Byrne at the time, you know. Alright, now this is a reprint of #1, if I remember, from Free Comic Book Day, and I think I haven't flipped through it, and I'll show you why in a minute. When the Turtles started, they were influenced by 4 major books. They're going by the influence. Turtles started out as just a doodle by 2 guys sitting there wondering what to do, and they ended up, they've been reading these books like New Mutants, Daredevil, specifically the Frank Miller Daredevil, which this is not one of them, but I'm just grabbing what's on my shelf here. Cerebus, which we'll come back to in a minute. And I always suspected, and I'm going to stick with what I have to say, Ronin by Frank Miller. Okay, I'm not going to get into those books. So, I always had this curiosity about the Turtles. Now, probably about 10 years ago, in a place outside of Gatlinburg, Tennessee, there is a town called Sevierville before you get into Pigeon Forge into Gatlinburg. It's a huge, it's where Dollywood's at. It's a huge vacation spot. And this comic book shop, which I recommend, go to it, you know, but at the time, truth be told, is one of those shops where if you went in to get a comic book, you had to sell an arm, a leg, and a part of your soul. So while I'm looking around, this is probably around the same time I also bought my Next Men number, I think 21, that had the first print of Hellboy. I also ran across these, and the look on my face, everything in this comic book shop was overpriced at the time. They've gotten much better from what I've heard. I think I've only been back 4 or 5 times since then. And, you know, they got all the comics lined out, and you had to really look around. And all of a sudden, at the end of one of their big long tables with all the comic book boxes, it wasn't even really a shelf, there was like a box. and you just saw the top of the books. And I looked in there, man, and this thing was like $1. And the look on my face, I was so skeptical. What? I was like, I asked them how much it was. They told me, you know, I'm just getting rid of that stuff for $1. It's stuff I can't get rid of, can't do anything with, because it's not a main. I don't know what they were thinking. So what we have here is a $10 book that came out back in the 80s by First Comics when they were still around. And what this does is this reprints. Let me make sure here. This is the first printing from 1986, and it basically reprints the first, you know, chronicles the stories from Rod Studios of the Turtles. Okay, in color. So I'm thinking it's jackpot. This is the Turtles I was looking for. We bleed, so do you. Okay, I see a lot of Kirby in all this stuff. Right there, those are Frank Miller poses. And as I read through these, you know, finally getting my Turtles experience that I heard so much about that I was wanting, it just was amazing. I missed out. These guys created a whole world and something really unique, as we all know. You know, but this was history in the making at the time. So I started digging through the books, and it continued. Another one for $1, First Comics. Volume 2, Book 2, same deal. It continued and continued. And the one I'm looking for is they had the Cerebus crossover. Some wizard or something did some time travel. They ended up meeting Cerebus. And the Turtles also had, like Daken Howlett said, a lot of sci-fi stuff. A lot of space, a lot of mutants, a lot of aliens. So they were kind of holding true to what Laird and Eastman really set up. Other dimensional monsters, sorry about this, came to a whole world of animals and mutants. Probably the Animutants is probably what they were called, but I don't know, I haven't read these in a while. You know, so I mean, the book really took off in ways that comic books at the time, you know, kind of had a formula. You knew what to expect, and these, you know, it was sort of predictable. Think like Fantastic Four, with every couple issues you knew who the villain was going to be. They'd go through Diablo, they'd go through Doctor Doom, and they'd throw in Galactus again, maybe the Inhumans, and then they'd start it all over again. Well, they didn't do this. This was all fresh. And not only was it all fresh, they kind of upped the ante. Because all of a sudden, you know, they were putting these little independent characters that they had no idea was going to be so marketable, you know, in some real peril. I mean, these guys are going to get killed when you look at that in an arena. So I really was enjoying the books. So the storyline I came across, and this is it. This is book 3. There might be 1 or 2 more books I haven't got yet, but they cross over with Cerebus. Now this is cool because this book was influenced by Cerebus. Comes back around, they have a big crossover with Cerebus. If I remember right, Dave Sim actually came in and he would draw the panels. You'd have Eastman and Laird drawing the Turtles, but you'd have Dave Sim come in drawing Cerebus, which I thought was a stroke of genius for being in the 80s. So you got these two styles going on. So they got a big splash page where they actually meet, which was just awesome because, you know, you had Dave Sim coming in, drawing Cerebus, Eastman and Laird, however they worked it out, drawing the Turtles. So this actually counts in continuity with, you know, anybody's Cerebus collection. And what was really cool about me getting to dig this stuff out is I found some books I've been missing, because I found this on the newsstand back in, like, I don't know, 92, 93, somewhere around that time. So I can get that glare off there. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles number 50. And before I get out of whack, I got number 48 also. This was a 2-part story. It's more or less a throw issue. So I was trying to grab Turtles whenever I could find them. They just didn't stick around here. They weren't selling out. They just weren't getting ordered all the time. So of course the comic book shops ordered the big issue 50. and this was City at War, and it was going to be a 13-part story. I was pumped, I was ready, I was going to do this. And the artwork in it is just amazing. It's like it was like the big return of both Easton and Laird, I guess, doing what they needed to do. Announcing issue 50, and there's no words in it. There's maybe a TV playing in the background, but we introduce all the characters: Casey Jones, April O'Neil, the Turtles, sure, you know, and you know, started seeing some of these other characters that came up with it. I missed out on, and it was just setting up Shattered Lives, Broken Up, never disappeared, never got to get it. So looks like I'll be on a quest. And of course, back here, Free Comic Book Day. You know, they reprinted the first issue, which is awesome. But I've been looking for this Sherlock Holmes #1 by Dynamite, so it's cool to find that. Just throwing that out there. All right, so you know, the way I remember the Turtles and stuff, it's really cool. They're fondly remembered. They're surviving today. Love the cartoon series that came out in the early 2000s. They had an episode called, I think, The King with Jack Kirby, which I'm sure is on YouTube. Which to me, Kirby is a big influence on him. Again, Frank Miller, a lot of the Marvel books. And now to leave you with a little bit of trivia that I remember. What a lot of people don't know is they know that the secret of the ooze or whatever is what made the Turtles. This bottle of ooze fell in the sewer. These turtles were some kid's pets, and he had dropped them down in the sewer. And what a lot of people don't realize is that so-called ooze ties into one Matt Murdock. I should have really marked this before I got in there. But in their origin story, what happens is this old man, a blind old man, is crossing the road, and this truck with toxic waste is about to hit them, and this little red-headed kid jumps out and tackles the old man, saving him from the truck. And the boy drops his little fish jar full of turtles he just bought down a sewer grate, and the little redhead boy ends up becoming blind because this ooze hits him. He gets a radar sense. The little container of ooze that hits him goes into the sewer and hits a rat and 4 turtles. So Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is actually tied into Daredevil with their origin, which I always thought was cool. Alright guys, thanks for hitting in there. Daken, Howlett, this was your fault, so carry on, sir. Thanks.